On a screen in a lab in Italy, two pictures sit side by side. On the left, a thin slice of a human brain under a microscope. On the right, a simulation of the universe, a block of space hundreds of millions of light years wide. Same bright knots, same faint threads strung between them, same dark gaps in between. A brain surgeon and an astrophysicist set these two images together, and at a glance they could not tell you which was which. One is the smallest network we know that can think. The other is the largest thing that exists. They were built by forces that share nothing. They have no business looking alike. So the two scientists stopped trusting their eyes and started to measure. The resemblance did not break. It got stronger. Something is repeating, across a gap almost too wide to picture. Picture the slice of brain first. It comes from the cerebellum, the dense knot at the base of the skull that keeps your body in time. Under the microscope, it is magnified 40 times. You see cells and threads running off them, and the threads meet at little hubs, and around the hubs the tissue goes dark and empty. Now hold that picture in your mind and look at the other one. It is a block of simulated space, a model of how matter spreads across the universe. Bright points scattered through it, faint filaments between the points, wide black voids where almost nothing sits. The brain surgeon Alberto Folletti pulled up both images in his office. He had spent a career inside human heads. He knew brain tissue the way you know your own street. And he sat there unable to say, fast, which image was the mind and which was the cosmos. So he did the obvious test. He showed the pair to other people and asked them to choose. Plenty of them got it wrong. The eye keeps sliding off the difference because at the level of shape, there barely is one. Knots tied by threads, threads strung across dark. That is the brain. That is also the sky. This is the moment the whole story grows from. So it is worth being honest about what it is and what it is not. It is not proof of anything yet. Two things can look alike for empty reasons. A coastline looks like a crack in dried mud. A river delta looks like the veins in a leaf. The world is full of branching shapes that rhyme by accident, and a careful mind learns to distrust them. But the people who noticed this one were not casual. Folletti is a working neurosurgeon. His partner, an astrophysicist named Franco Vatsa, models the structure of the universe on supercomputers for a living. These are two people who stare at these exact systems all day, from opposite ends of all possible scale, and both of them looked at the other person's world and felt a jolt of recognition. That is a strange thing for an expert to feel. Experts are usually the hardest to fool because they know all the ways a resemblance can be fake, and the recognition would not let go. The brain holds something like 69 billion neurons in the cerebellum alone, give or take, all wired into a network. The visible universe holds on the order of 100 billion galaxies, strung into a network of their own. Two numbers from two worlds that should have nothing to say to each other, landing in the same neighborhood. You can wave that off as chance. The scientists could not quite make themselves do it. So they made a decision that turned a pretty coincidence into a real investigation. They agreed to stop arguing from the picture. A picture can lie. They would treat both systems as networks of dots and connections, run the same hard measurements on each, and let the numbers say whether the likeness was real or just a trick of tired eyes. If the numbers came back different, the story ended there, and it would have been a fun afternoon and nothing more. The numbers did not come back different. But before any of that means anything, you have to look hard at the thing on the right. Because most people have no idea what the largest structure in existence actually is. Start with what is actually out there, because it is stranger than the word universe makes it sound. Matter in the cosmos is not spread out evenly, like fog. It is collected, pooled. Over billions of years, gravity has gathered nearly everything into a single vast pattern. And that pattern has a name: the cosmic web. Picture it built from a few simple parts. There are nodes, the dense crossing points, packed with galaxies by the hundreds or thousands. There are filaments, long ropes of galaxies and gas and dark matter that run between the nodes like cables strung between towers. There are sheets, flat walls of material spanning the gaps, and there are voids, the enormous near-empty rooms in between, some of them hundreds of millions of light years wide, holding almost nothing at all. Hold the proportions in your head, because they are hard to believe. The voids take up around 80% of the volume of the universe. 80% of everything is mostly empty room. The galaxies and the light and the worlds, all of it, are crowded onto the thin walls and threads that wrap around those rooms. You do not live in the open space. You live on the web. And the web is mostly invisible. The galaxies you can see are the bright trim on a structure made of something you cannot. Most of the matter holding the filaments together is dark matter, a substance that gives off no light and slips through ordinary stuff like it is not there. We have never held a piece of it. We know it by its pull. The visible galaxies are like dew on a spider's thread, catching the light, showing you the shape of a web spun from material you cannot see. For a long time, the cosmic web was mostly a prediction. The math of how the early universe should clump said the matter ought to fall into this branching shape. Then the surveys came, the great projects that mapped the sky galaxy by the millions, and the predicted pattern was simply there. The threads, the nodes, the voids, the largest known structure in nature, confirmed, not imagined. Sit with the scale for a second, slowly. A single filament can stretch for hundreds of millions of light years. Light, which crosses from the sun to the earth in about 8 minutes, would need hundreds of millions of years to run the length of one thread. And the threads link into nodes, and the nodes link by more threads, on and on, until the whole observable universe is one connected mesh. There is no edge to it that we have found. It just keeps weaving. Now here is the part that snaps the story back. That structure, the largest thing there is, the dark web of galaxies wrapped around continents of empty space, is the image on the right side of Folletti's screen. That is the thing a brain surgeon could not tell apart from a sliver of someone's mind, which forces the question back the other way. If the biggest object in existence is built like a network of bright knots and dark threads, then what exactly is the thing inside your skull? We say the word brain like we understand it. We do not, really. And the closer you look at how it is actually wired, the more the floor starts to tilt. Open the skull and the first surprise is how little is happening in any one place. A single neuron is not smart. It is a cell that collects signals, and when the signals pile up past a line, fires a pulse to its neighbors. That is close to the whole job. One pulse, passed on. Nothing in that act looks like thought. The trick is the wiring. You carry somewhere around 86 billion neurons. Each one reaches out and links to others, sometimes a few, sometimes many thousands, through fine branches that thread between the cells. Stack all those links together and you get a number with no real feel to it. A count of connections that runs into the hundreds of trillions. The thought you are having right now is not stored in any cell. It lives in the pattern of which cells are talking to which. So look at the pattern, not the parts. The neurons gather into little hubs. The hubs join into clusters. The clusters wire into whole regions, and the regions trade signals across long fibers that cross the brain. Between the busy zones sit quieter gaps, tissue where the wiring thins out, bright knots, threads between them, darker space around. You have heard this description already. It was the cosmic web. It is also the inside of your head, and that is not loose talk. It is what the tissue looks like when you map the connections. The cerebellum, the slice on the screen, is the clearest case. It is the densest wiring in the body, a network so fine it holds more than half of all the neurons you own inside a small fist of tissue at the base of the brain. Its whole purpose is to be a network. It takes floods of signals from your body and your senses and weaves them into smooth motion and timing. Pull a thin sheet of it under a microscope, and the branching mesh stares back. Knots and filaments and quiet voids. The small version of the sky. Now line up the proportions the way we did for the universe, because they keep the strangeness honest. Of all that brain tissue, only a fraction is the working network of neurons. A large share, around 3/4 of the brain by mass, is water. Water fills the space, supports the cells, carries no thoughts of its own. The thinking part, the active web, is the thinner share laced through it. Keep that ratio in your pocket. We're gonna need it, because the universe has one just like it, and the way it lines up is one of the quieter shocks in this whole story. For now, sit with the plain fact. The brain is not a lump that thinks. It is a network that thinks. A web of dim little switches whose pattern of connection somehow adds up to you. And that web, drawn out and mapped, takes the same form as the largest structure in existence. Same building plan. Same bright nodes tied by threads across dark. Two systems. One at the scale of a fist, one at the scale of the entire visible universe. Nothing about their parts is shared. A neuron is a wet cell. A galaxy is 100 billion suns. They could not be more different up close, yet step back far enough from each, and the same shape rises out of both. That is the coincidence the two scientists could not let lie. The next question is who they were, and why they were the rare pair on Earth equipped to test it, instead of just admire it. The pairing should not have happened. The two halves of this question live in different buildings, different journals, different worlds. Cosmologists model the birth and shape of the universe. Neuroscientists map the wiring of the mind. They almost never read each other's work, and they have little reason to meet. Franco Vatsa is a cosmologist. He builds simulations of the universe on large computers, feeding in the laws of physics and watching the cosmic web grow out of them across simulated time. He spends his days with the largest structures there are. Alberto Folletti is a neurosurgeon. He operates on living brains. He spends his days inside the smallest network that can hold a mind, with the stakes of a human life on the table. What they shared was an old habit of talking across the gap. And at some point, the conversation landed on the thing you have already seen. The pictures look alike. Both men had felt it. The difference is what they did next. Most people who notice the resemblance post the two images online, marvel for a minute, and scroll on. These two had the rare luck of being exactly the experts who could put it to the test, one on each side. That matters, because the easy version of this story is the wrong one. The easy version says the universe is a giant brain and we are thoughts inside it. That idea is old and it sells, and it is not what these two set out to show. Vaza in particular has spent years pushing back on the mystical reading. He knows how a resemblance can fool you. His goal was almost the opposite of the headline. He wanted to measure the likeness precisely, so he could say, with numbers, exactly how far it really goes and where it breaks. So they framed it as a fair fight. Take the brain network and the cosmic web. Reduce each to the same bare thing, a set of points and the links between them. Then run the standard tools, the same on both, the ones cosmologists use to measure the structure of the universe, and the ones network science uses to measure any web of connections. If the two systems were only alike to the lazy eye, the hard numbers would split them apart. The likeness would dissolve under measurement, the way a face in the clouds dissolves when you stare. There was one honest limit they stated up front, and it matters. They could not trace every true connection in the brain. The real long-range wiring of neurons is beyond current mapping at that scale. So they used a stand-in, linking nearby cells by simple closeness rather than by their actual signal paths. That makes the test conservative. It compares the rough spatial pattern of each network, not the full living circuit. Keep that in mind through everything that follows. If anything, it should have made a match harder to find, not easier. Two men then. One who knows the universe and one who knows the mind, meeting at the only place their fields touch, which is shape. They were not trying to prove a cosmic miracle. They were trying to kill a coincidence, fairly with math. It refused to die. And the first measurement they ran, the one cosmologists trust most for reading the structure of space itself, came back with a result that neither the surgeon nor the stargazer was ready to explain. Before the result, you need to know why a picture is never enough, because this is the hinge the whole story turns on. Human eyes are pattern machines, tuned by evolution to find shape fast, especially the shapes that once meant food or danger. That tuning saved our ancestors. It also makes us see structure that is not there. A face in a rock, an animal in a cloud, a meaning in a coincidence. The eye votes yes far too easily. So in science, looking alike counts for nothing on its own. The question is always whether the likeness holds up when you turn it into a number, because a number does not care what it reminds you of. You need a measurement that takes a complicated pattern and boils it down to something you can compare straight across two systems that share no parts. Cosmologists have exactly such a tool, and they did not invent it for brains. They built it to read the universe. The idea is to ask for a given structure how its lumpiness is spread across different sizes. Put plainly, you measure how much of the clumping happens in big chunks versus medium chunks versus tiny grains. Every structure has its own balance. A smooth fog has almost no clumping at any size. A handful of gravel clumps hard at small sizes, and not at large ones. The cosmic web has a particular signature, a specific mix of clumping across scales, and that signature is one of the main things cosmologists use to test their whole picture of how the universe grew. Think of it like the recipe behind a texture. Two cakes might look similar on top, but bite in and the crumb tells you how each was made. Fine here, coarse there. This measurement reads the crumb of a structure. It pulls out the hidden recipe of how the lumps are arranged, from the largest features down to the smallest. And it does not need the two things to be the same size, or made of the same stuff, or built by the same force. It only reads the pattern of clumping. That makes it the one fair judge you could put between a brain and a universe. So that is what they did. They took the spread of matter in the cosmic web and read its clumping signature across its range of sizes. Then, they took the neuronal network in the slice of brain and read its clumping signature across its range of sizes. Two recipes, pulled from two systems separated by almost everything. Now you simply lay one curve over the other and see whether they fall together or fly apart. If the resemblance were only in the eye, this is exactly where it would break. The curves would cross, diverge, tell two different stories, and the whole thing would deflate into a nice optical accident. That outcome was not only possible. For most pairs of unrelated structures, it is what you would expect. Read the texture of a brain and the texture of a coastline and a snowflake and a sponge, and you will get curves that wander off in their own directions. There is no law saying any two systems must share a clumping recipe. The brain and the universe were not most pairs. When they set the two curves side by side across a stretch of sizes in each, the lines did not wander apart. They tracked each other. The recipe was the same. And the size of the gap that recipe had just leapt across is the part that should stop you cold. Here is what the match actually was, stated plainly. In the brain, they looked at the cerebellum and read its clumping across sizes running from about 1 micrometer up to about 1/10 of a millimeter. A micrometer is 1,000th of a millimeter, far smaller than anything your eye can split. So this is the fine grain of brain tissue, the texture down at the level of the cells and their threads. In the universe, they read the cosmic web across sizes running from about 5 million light years up to about 500 million light years. That is the coarse grain of the cosmos, the spread of matter from the scale of galaxy groups up to the great filaments and the voids. Now, hold those two ranges in your mind at once. One is measured in fractions of a millimeter, the other is measured in hundreds of millions of light years. And across those two utterly different stretches, the way the lumps were arranged followed the same progression. The brain's clumping curve and the universe's clumping curve traced the same path. Same recipe, read at the scale of a cell and at the scale of the sky. This is the result that the word coincidence starts to strain under. Two matching curves are not a vague feeling that the pictures rhyme. It is a measured agreement in the hidden structure of each system. And it is not a soft tool. This exact measurement, the spread of clumping across sizes, is one of the main things cosmologists use to test their whole model of how the universe grew from its first moments. It is among the most trusted readings in the science of the cosmos. Point that same trusted reading at a sliver of human brain. And it reports that the brain is arranged by the same statistical rule as the sky. The scientists were careful about what this proves, and so should we be. This is one study, a first careful pass, built on a simplified stand-in for the brain's true wiring. It is not the final word, and they never claimed it was. Call it confirmed that the measured patterns match across these scales. Call the reason for the match an open mystery, because a matching pattern does not by itself tell you why. Honest framing makes the result heavier, not lighter. They went hunting for the likeness to crack under hard measurement. It did not crack, it sharpened. So set the coincidence aside for good. Something real is being measured here. The same clumping recipe, pulled from a fist of brain and from the largest structure that exists, came back the same, which forces forward the question that has been waiting behind all of this. How far apart are these two systems, truly? Because the answer is a single number, and it is almost too large to hold in the mind as a number at all. Put a brain next to the universe and try to write down how much bigger the universe is. You start counting zeros, and you do not stop for a long time. The honest figure the scientists used is about 27 orders of magnitude. That means a 1 with 27 zeros after it. A billion is a 1 with 9 zeros. So we're talking about a billion times a billion times a billion. That is the size gap between the slice of brain and the stretch of cosmos whose patterns just matched. Numbers that large stop meaning anything. So let it land slowly. Suppose you wanted to grow a single neuron up to the size of a whole galaxy filament. You could not multiply by 1,000. You could not multiply by 1,000,000 or 1,000,000,000. You would have to multiply by 1,000,000,000, and then by 1,000,000,000 again, and then by 1,000,000,000 once more. Only then have you crossed the gap. There is almost nothing else in science where two things this far apart in size are caught doing the same thing. And that is exactly what makes the match strange instead of cute. When two things are close in scale, you expect them to share rules. Whirlpools in a bathtub and storms in the sky are both swirling fluids, so a shared pattern is no shock. But the brain and the cosmic web do not sit anywhere near each other. They are separated by the widest gap of scale you can point at, from the inside of a cell to the architecture of all visible space. There is no reason for a rule that shapes one to know anything about the other. They live in different universes of size. There is more than size pulling them apart. They run on different clocks too. The brain wires itself over months and years, inside a single human life. The cosmic web took most of the age of the universe to grow, building itself over billions of years through the slow pull of gravity. One is fast and warm and wet. The other is cold and vast and patient beyond all feeling. A thought crosses your brain in a fraction of a second. A signal crossing one cosmic filament would take longer than the Earth has existed. So nothing connects them. Not size, not time, not material, not the force doing the building. By every ordinary measure, these are the two most separated systems you could name, 1 billion times apart, governed by powers that have never met. The safe bet, the bet any scientist would take, is that two things this far apart could not possibly share a structure. They share a structure. That is the whole shock in one line. Across the largest gap of scale that exists, between a piece of mind and the skeleton of the cosmos, the same pattern appears, measured and confirmed in more than one way. The distance that should have guaranteed they had nothing in common is the very thing that makes their match impossible to wave off. A coincidence at close range is cheap. A coincidence across 27 orders of magnitude is a different kind of thing. And we have only compared the maps so far. The threads and the nodes. There is another likeness, hiding not in the wiring but in what each system is made of. In the plane ratio of the busy part to the still part. When the two scientists lined those up, the numbers nearly touched. And that, somehow, is harder to explain than the shape. Step away from shape for a moment, and weigh each system instead. Ask a blunt question. Of everything in here, and everything out there, how much is actually doing the work, and how much is just filling space? Start with the brain, with the ratio you tucked away earlier. About 3/4 of the brain is water. By mass, most of your brain is not neurons at all. It is fluid, support, and packing. The thinking network, the active web of cells, is the smaller share laced through that wet bulk. So the part that does the work, the live wiring, is roughly 1/4 of the whole. The rest is a still, passive sea that the network floats in. Now weigh the universe the same way, and this is where it gets uncomfortable. The cosmos is dominated by something called dark energy, a strange pressure that fills all of space and pushes it to expand faster and faster. We do not know what dark energy is. We know it is there, and we know it makes up the large majority of the universe, somewhere around 70% of everything. It does no building. It forms no structures. It is the still sea. And the part that actually clumps into the cosmic web, The matter that gathers into galaxies and filaments and nodes is the smaller share left over. Lay the two ratios side by side. In the brain, a passive majority of water around a working minority of network. In the universe, a passive majority of dark energy around a working minority of structure. Both systems are mostly inert filler, with a thin active web threaded through. And the size of the active share, the part that does the real work, lands in a similar range in both, around a quarter to a third in each, give or take, doing the building, while the rest sits still and fills the room. Sit with how odd that is. There is no reason these fractions should rhyme. Water ended up in your skull through biology, through cells and chemistry and the needs of living tissue. Dark energy fills the cosmos through physics we barely understand, written into the universe at its birth. Two completely separate stories, water and dark energy, with nothing in common, and yet they each settled into the same job. The quiet majority. The sea the network swims in, and the working web in each case is the same slim fraction of the whole. Be careful not to oversell it. These are rough numbers, and water and dark energy are nothing alike up close. One is a familiar liquid, the other is the deepest open mystery in physics. Calling them the same thing would be a cheat, but the role they play and the share of the whole they take up line up between the two systems in a way that no one planned and no one can fully explain. So now the likeness runs deeper than the picture. It is not only that the brain and the universe are wired to the same plan, it is that both are built in the same proportions. A thin active network carried inside a vast passive bulk. The map matches, the recipe matches, the mixture matches. There is one more layer to check before anyone is allowed to argue about what it means. So far, we have weighed the systems and read their texture. We have not yet counted the wiring itself, node by node, the plain bookkeeping of how a network is joined together. That count is where you would most expect a brain and a universe to finally part ways. They do not part ways there either. Forget what a network is made of and just count how it is joined. This is the most basic way to describe any web of things. Pick a node. Count how many links come out of it. Do that for every node, and you learn the shape of the whole, whether it is a sparse mesh or a dense tangle, whether the connections spread out evenly or pile up in a few crowded spots. The two scientists ran this count on both systems. In the cosmic web, the nodes are the dense crossing points where filaments meet, and each one joins to a number of threads. In the brain network, the nodes are the cell hubs, and each one joins to a number of neighbors. When they tally the typical node in each, the figures landed in a similar range. A node in the cosmic web and a node in the brain carry a comparable handful of connections each. Not wildly different. Close. Then they looked at how those connections are spread and found the same habit in both. Neither network treats its nodes as equals. In each, most nodes carry a modest number of links, while a small set of central hubs gather far more than their share, becoming the busy crossroads that hold the whole web together. Cut a random node and little changes. Cut one of the rare hubs and the network feels it everywhere. Both the brain and the cosmic web are built this way, around a few heavily loaded centers rather than a flat, even spread. This is a real design, and it is not the only one possible. You could wire a network so every node has roughly the same number of links, a plain, even grid with no special centers. Plenty of human systems look like that. But that even grid is not what the brain does, and it is not what the universe does. Both reached for the same uneven plan, a sea of light nodes hung off a few heavy hubs, and that plan has a known advantage. It lets a signal cross the whole network in very few steps, while keeping the total amount of wiring low. It is efficient. It connects a vast number of points without paying for a vast number of links. That word, efficient, is the first quiet crack of light in the mystery, and we will come back to it. A network built that way is solving a problem. It is trying to link many things tightly without spending too much on connections. The brain faces that problem because wiring costs space and energy inside a skull. The universe faces nothing of the kind. No budget, no skull, no goal, and yet gravity, pulling matter together over billions of years with no plan at all, arrived at the same efficient layout that evolution arrived at in the head. Same solution. No shared problem. So tally the score before the pushback comes. The brain and the cosmic web match in the texture of their clumping. They match in their mixture of active and passive. They match in how many connections a node carries. They match in the habit of loading a few central hubs. By every separate measure the two scientists tried, across the widest gap of scale that exists, the two systems kept coming back the same. It is exactly here, with the evidence stacked this high, that the strongest objection arrives. And it is not a weak one. It says the fault is in us. That the human mind is a pattern machine that cannot stop finding shapes. And that everything you have just heard might be our own hunger for meaning. Dressed up in numbers. Give the objection its real teeth, because it is the right thing to be afraid of. Your brain did not evolve to see the truth. It evolved to keep your ancestors alive. And one of the cheapest ways to stay alive is to assume a pattern is real, especially a threatening one. The rustle in the grass that might be a predator. The face that might be an enemy. A mind that saw patterns even where none existed survived. A mind that demanded proof first got eaten. So we are the descendants of the world's most eager pattern finders, and we cannot switch it off. You can feel it working every day. You see a face in the front of a car, 2 headlights and a grille. You see animals in the clouds. You hear your name in a noisy room when no one said it. There is a name for this, the habit of finding meaningful shapes in random stuff. It runs so deep that you cannot choose to stop it. The face in the car is there whether you like it or not. Now turn that lens on this whole story, honestly. 2 branching networks. Of course they look alike, a skeptic says. Branching shapes are everywhere in nature, because branching is a cheap way to fill space. Rivers branch, trees branch, lightning branches, your blood vessels branch, cracks in dry ground branch. The world is full of forking patterns that all rhyme, and none of them mean the river is thinking or the lightning is alive. Maybe the brain and the cosmic web are just 2 more branching things on a long list. And the only special thing about the pair is that we happen to be the brain. So we get excited. This is the heart of the doubt, and it is strong, so hold on to it. People want the universe to mean something. We want to matter, to be reflected in the stars, to find our own shape written into the sky. That want is powerful enough to bend judgment. A resemblance between the mind and the cosmos is exactly the kind of thing a meaning-hungry creature would talk itself into. And scientists are people too. Wanting it to be true is not evidence that it is. If the case rested on the picture, the skeptic would win here, cleanly, and this story would be over. 2 systems looking alike is worth nothing against a mind this eager to connect them. The honest move, the one the scientists themselves made, is to grant the objection its full force. Yes, we see faces in cars. Yes, branching is common. Yes, we badly want this to be real. All true, but here's the line the objection cannot cross. Pareidolia is about the eye. It is about being fooled by appearance. And the whole reason these two scientists stopped looking and started measuring was to step out of the reach of the eye entirely. A clumping curve does not see a face. A count of connections does not want the universe to mean something. The numbers have no hunger. They cannot be charmed by a resemblance because they never saw one. So the real test is simple. Did the doubters build the measurement carefully enough to fool themselves the way a good skeptic should? And did the match survive anyway? That is the next thing to look at. And it is the part that decides whether any of this stands. A real test has to be able to fail. That is the rule that separates science from wishful thinking. If you design a comparison that says yes no matter what you feed it, you have proven nothing. So the question for the brain and the universe is whether the measurement they used could have come back no, and what they checked it against. It could have come back no, easily. The clumping curve, the reading of how lumps spread across sizes, gives different answers for different structures. That is the whole point of it. Feed it a smooth, even spread, and it reports almost no clumping. Feed it tight little clusters, and it reports heavy clumping at small sizes. Feed it a structure that clumps at large sizes and not small ones, and it reports that. The tool is built to tell things apart. Most pairs of unrelated systems run through it, come out looking unrelated, with curves that drift off in their own directions. There is no built-in habit of declaring a match. The way you prove that to yourself is to compare against things that should not match, and watch the tool say so. And this is where the comparison earned its keep. The scientists did not only line the brain up against the universe, they checked the brain against other things, and the universe against other things, to see where the likeness held and where it broke. The finding that matters is not just that the brain and the cosmic web agreed. It is that they agreed with each other more closely than the cosmic web agreed with a single galaxy, and more closely than the brain network agreed with the inside of a single neuron. Sit with that, because it is the quiet center of the whole case. You might expect a galaxy to look like the cosmic web, since the web is made of galaxies. It does not as closely. You might expect the inside of a brain cell to look like the network of brain cells. It does not as closely. The tightest match in the whole comparison was the one with no right to exist. The brain network against the cosmic web. Two systems separated by everything. The tool drew distinctions. It said these are different and those are alike. And the alike it picked out was the impossible pair. That is what turns this from a pretty coincidence into a result with weight. The measurement was able to say no. It said no to the easy, expected matches. It said yes to the strange one. A test that can fail and fails in the places it should, and then surprises you in the place it should not, is a test worth taking seriously. None of this makes the finding the final word, and the scientists were the first to say so. It is one study. The brain data was a simplified stand-in. The comparison should be run again, with better maps of real neural wiring, by other people trying hard to break it. That is how this is supposed to go. Call the match confirmed within the limits of what they measured, and call its meaning wide open. But within those limits, the resemblance is not in the eye. It survived the one thing built to kill it. So we are left holding a real fact and a missing reason. Two systems with nothing in common are made to the same plan. And the deeper you look at how little they share, the louder the question gets. Because there is no force, no particle, no cause that passes between them. Walk the gap between them one more time, slowly, looking for any thread that could pass from one to the other. Because if the same pattern shows up in two places, the natural thought is that some shared cause put it there. find the common thread and the mystery dissolves. So go looking for it. You will not find it. Start with the force that builds each. The cosmic web is shaped by gravity, and only gravity working across emptiness. Gravity is the weakest force in nature, but it has two things going for it. It reaches across any distance, and it only ever pulls. Give it billions of years, and it drags matter together, grain onto grain, until the whole universe is combed into threads and nodes. That is the entire story of the web. One weak, patient, attractive force pulling for the age of the cosmos. Now, the brain. The brain is not built by gravity in any way that matters. Gravity is far too weak to arrange anything inside your head. The brain runs on electricity and chemistry, on charged particles and signaling molecules, on forces that are enormously stronger than gravity but reach only the tiniest distances, cell to neighboring cell. Where gravity is weak and long and slow, the forces in the brain are strong and short and fast. They are not the same force turned up or down. They are different powers entirely, governed by different rules, doing their work in different ways. So the builders share nothing. Gravity does not act in the brain. Electricity and chemistry do not act on the cosmic web. There is no force that touches both systems and could have stamped the same pattern onto each. The cause of the shape in here and the cause of the shape out there have never met and never will. Keep stripping away the possible threads. Material. The web is made of dark matter, hydrogen gas, and stars. The brain is made of water, fat, and the salts that carry a nerve signal. No shared substance. Size, already counted, 1 billion times apart. Time, already counted, a human life against the age of the universe. Temperature, the cold of deep space against the warmth of living tissue. Go down the list of everything that could possibly link two physical systems, and every single line comes back empty. This is the thing that should unsettle you, more than the resemblance itself. A shared pattern with a shared cause is ordinary. Two rivers branch the same way because the same physics of flowing water shapes both. But the brain and the cosmic web have no shared cause to point to. No common force, no common stuff, no common scale or clock. The usual explanation, find the link and the mystery dies, has nowhere to stand. There is no link. And yet the pattern is the same. Measured, checked, survived its own test. The same network, the same clumping, the same mixture built twice by two sets of rules that share not one ingredient, separated by the widest gap in nature. When a pattern appears in two places with no thread connecting them, scientists have a name for what might be happening, and it is one of the strangest ideas in all of science. It says that complex networks do not need a shared cause to end up alike. It says the shape itself can be the destination, reached by roads that have nothing in common. That idea has a plain handle, and once you understand it, the brain and the universe stop looking like a miracle and start looking like a clue. The idea is called self-organization, and you have watched it happen without knowing its name. It is what occurs when order appears in a system that no one ordered. No blueprint, no hand arranging the parts, just simple rules, followed by many pieces at once, and out of that, a complex pattern rises on its own. You have seen it in a flock of birds. No bird is in charge. Each one follows a few plain rules. Stay close to your neighbors. Do not crash into them. Turn when they turn. From those simple local habits, with no leader and no plan, the whole flock moves as one body, wheeling and folding across the sky in shapes no single bird intended. The pattern is real, and it came from nowhere but the rules. That is self-organization. It is everywhere once you look. Sand ripples into even rows under a wind that has no design. Cracks spread through cooling rock in repeating cells. A snowflake builds its 6 arms from nothing but the way water freezes. In every case, simple rules repeated across many parts give rise to a structure far more complex than the rules themselves. The order is not put in, it comes out. Here is why that matters for 2 webs separated by everything. Self-organization does not care what the parts are. It does not care what force is doing the pushing. It only cares about the logic of how parts connect under simple, repeated rules. And a deep, unsettling possibility falls out of that. If 2 systems are both networks growing under rules that balance the same basic pressures, they can arrive at the same shape, even if their parts and forces share nothing at all. The shape is set by the logic of connection, not by the stuff doing the connecting. Look back at the brain and the cosmic web through that lens. Both are huge numbers of simple parts. Both grow by a local rule repeated everywhere. In the universe, matter pulls on nearby matter, gathers, and the gathering feeds on itself until threads and nodes appear. In the brain, cells reach toward useful neighbors, link, and the linking shapes itself into hubs and clusters. 2 different rules, gravity in one, biology in the other, but the same kind of rule, a local pull repeated across a vast number of parts. And both grow under a quiet pressure to connect a great many things efficiently, without wasting connections. Feed those same pressures into self-organization, and the same efficient web can fall out of both, with no shared cause required. That is the leading theory, the calm scientific reading of this whole strange business. Not that the universe is a mind, not that some signal passed between the cosmos and the cortex, but that the laws of how networks build themselves are deeper than the things they build. That shape can be a destination reached from many directions. The brain and the cosmic web may be 2 answers to the same hidden question, written in 2 languages that never met. It is a clean idea, and it almost closes the case. Almost. Because if self-organization is the answer, then it should not be rare. The same logic, the same pressures, should be stamping this pattern all over nature, not just in these 2 famous places. So the honest next step is to go looking. And what turns up is that the brain and the universe are not a lonely pair at all. They are 2 points on a list that runs much longer and much stranger than 2. Once you know the shape, you start seeing it everywhere, and not by imagination. Measure them, and a long list of natural systems turn out to be built on the same uneven network. A sea of light nodes hung off a few heavy hubs, threads across quiet gaps. Take the fungus that grows underground beneath a forest. Out of sight, threads of it spread through the soil and link the roots of tree after tree into one connected web. Nutrients and chemical signals move along it from tree to tree. Map that web and you find the same plan. A network of nodes and threads with a few busy crossroads, carrying the heavy traffic. People have started calling it the Wood Wide Web, and the joke holds, because the structure really is the same family as the others. Look at the slime mold, a single strange organism with no brain at all. Drop food in a dish in the rough layout of a city and its rail stops, and the slime mold will spread, explore, and then trim itself down to a network of channels linking the food. The network it settles on often matches the efficient layout that human engineers designed for those same stops, with no mind and no plan, only the rule of feeding and pruning. The same efficient web again, reached by a creature that cannot think. Look at how a river system drains a landscape, branching into a tree of channels. Look at the cracks in a dried lake bed, breaking the mud into a mesh of cells. Look at the airways inside your own lungs, splitting again and again into a fine network that fills the chest. Look at the path of a lightning bolt, forking through the air. Different forces, different scales, different stuff, and a family resemblance running through all of them. Networks and branches, hubs and threads, the same handful of shapes nature keeps reaching for. This is exactly what self-organization predicted. If shape really is a destination that many roads can reach, then the brain and the cosmic web should not be alone. They should be two famous members of a crowd. And they are. The crowd is real. Nature, given simple parts and simple rules, and a pressure to connect things well, keeps building the same kind of web in the soil and the sky and the lungs and the lightning and the mind. So, in one way, the mystery softens. The brain and the universe are not a magic pair, chosen and matched by some cosmic hand. They are two cases of a pattern that runs through everything, the natural signature of how complex networks grow. That should be a comfort. The likeness has a reasonable explanation, and the explanation does not require the stars to be alive. And yet the comfort does not fully land, and it is worth being honest about why. Saying the pattern is everywhere does not explain why this shape, out of all possible shapes. It pushes the mystery up a level rather than solving it. We have traded one hard question. Why does the brain look like the universe for a harder one? Why does nature, across forces that share nothing, keep returning to the same small set of forms, as if the shapes were waiting to be found? That question opens onto something larger than two networks. It reaches into whether the universe repeats itself on purpose, at every scale, all the way down. And the deeper anyone has looked, the more the repeating seems to go. The repeating goes deeper than networks. The universe has a habit of using the same shapes at sizes that have no business rhyming, and once you notice it, it is hard to stop seeing. Look at a spiral. Water turning down a drain makes one. A hurricane seen from space makes one. A vast wheel of cloud hundreds of miles wide. A galaxy makes one. 100 billion stars wound into the same curl, 100,000 light years across. 3 spirals at sizes a sink, a storm, and a galaxy apart, and the same form in each. The drain does not know about the galaxy. The galaxy does not know about the storm. Yet the shape keeps coming back. There is a word for a pattern that looks the same at different scales. Self-similar. Zoom in on a coastline, and a small bay holds the same ragged shape as the whole shore. Zoom in on a fern, and one frond is a small copy of the entire leaf. Zoom in on a branch of your lungs, and it looks like the whole tree of airways shrunk down. The part echoes the whole. Nature builds by copying its own forms across scale, over and over, in living things and dead ones alike. The cosmic web sits inside this habit, and that is the quiet link back to the brain. A small patch of the web, the threads around one node, carries the same look as a huge stretch of it. The structure repeats at different sizes within itself. So a universe that already copies its forms across scale, drain to storm to galaxy, bay to shore, frond to fern, is a universe that was always going to repeat a network somewhere unexpected. The brain is one more echo in a cosmos full of echoes. That reframes the whole mystery, and it is worth saying plainly. The brain, looking like the universe, is not a lone freak event. It is one instance of the single strangest fact about nature, that the same small set of shapes shows up again and again across forces and scales that share nothing. Spirals, branches, networks. The universe acts less like a place full of random different things, and more like a place working from a short list of forms, reusing each one wherever it fits. No one knows why the list is short. That is the honest center of it. We can describe the shapes. We can write the math that makes a spiral or a branching tree fall out of simple rules. What we cannot say is why reality leans so hard on so few patterns. Why it did not spread its structures across endless unrelated forms instead of returning, again and again, to the same handful. The repeating is measured and real. The reason for it is open. So the resemblance between the mind and the cosmos turns out to be a doorway, not a curiosity. Behind it stands the larger fact that the universe rhymes with itself at every scale, and that we are made of the same rhymes. Your spiraling cells, your branching nerves, your networked brain, each one is a small echo of a form the universe uses on the grand scale too. And that is exactly where the dangerous thought creeps in. The one almost everyone reaches for, and most scientists refuse to say out loud. If the universe is built from the same patterns as a brain, if it is one vast network of nodes and threads firing across the dark, then a person starts to wonder whether the universe might, in some sense, be a mind. It is the obvious leap. It is also a trap, and it is worth walking into carefully to see exactly why. Say the tempting idea out loud, in full, so we can look at it honestly. The universe is a network of nodes and connections. A brain is a network of nodes and connections. A brain wired up this way produces thought. So maybe the universe, wired up the same way, produces thought too. Maybe the cosmic web is thinking, slow and vast, and every galaxy is a single firing of a mind too large to notice us. It is a powerful idea, and very old. Long before anyone measured a clumping curve, people looked at the night sky and felt watched, felt that the whole thing was somehow alive and aware. The new science seems, at first, to hand that ancient feeling a hard scientific spine. Here is your cosmic mind, measured at last. The same architecture as the brain, confirmed across 27 orders of magnitude. It is the kind of claim that spreads fast, because it answers a deep want. It tells us the universe is the sort of thing we are, only greater. And it is almost certainly wrong, for reasons worth being precise about. Looking like a brain is not the same as being a brain. A network shape is necessary for thought, but it is nowhere near enough. Your thoughts do not come from the bare fact that your neurons form a web. They come from what runs on the web, the fast pulses, the signals crossing in milliseconds, the loops that feed back on themselves and update thousands of times a second. The tight choreography of timing that a brain spends its whole life performing. The cosmic web does none of that. Its nodes are galaxies, and the time for any signal to cross from one to another is measured in millions of years. There are no fast pulses, there is no rapid feedback, there is no timed firing, there is gravity pulling over spans of time so long that a single round trip between two nodes would outlast the Earth many times over. A structure that updates once every several million years is not running thoughts. The shape is there. The activity that would make the shape think is not, and it is not close. So the honest scientists, the two who started this, hold a careful line, and Vaza has held it harder than anyone. The likeness is in the structure. It is real, and it is measured. It is not evidence that the universe is aware. To leap from a shared shape to a shared mind is to ignore everything that actually makes a mind, which is not the wiring diagram, but the living storm of signal that runs across it. The cosmic web has the map of a brain and none of the weather. This is the discipline that separates a real finding from a comforting story. The finding is strange enough on its own, two systems built to the same plan by unrelated forces. You do not need to inflate it into a conscious cosmos, And the moment you do, you have left the evidence behind and started telling yourself a fairy tale, however beautiful. So set the cosmic mind down. Gently, but all the way down. The universe is not thinking about you. Once that comforting idea is gone, though, you are left alone with the bare result, stripped of its mysticism, and the strange thing is that the bare result is harder to live with than the fairy tale was. Take the easy answer off the table for good, and see what is left standing. The universe is not a brain. It is not aware. It is not thinking slow thoughts in the dark with galaxies for neurons. Nothing in the evidence supports that, and the speed of the cosmic web rules it out. Cross it off and do not look back. People reach for the cosmic mind because it is, oddly, the comfortable option. It makes the universe familiar. It says the cosmos is the same kind of thing you are, a mind, only larger, and a mind you can imagine talking to or being held by or mattering to. It folds the whole strange result back into a shape the human heart already knows. That is why it spreads. It is a warm answer. What it hides is that the real result is colder and stranger. Strip away the cosmic mind and here is what remains, fully intact. Two systems, separated by the widest gap of scale in nature, built by forces that share nothing, with no thread of cause running between them, have arrived at the same structure. That fact does not go away when you reject the mysticism. It sits there, plain and unexplained, and now you have to face it without the comfort of pretending the universe meant to do it. Because that is the part the cosmic mind quietly smuggled in, a sense of intention. If the universe is a mind, then the resemblance has a reason, even a friendly one. The cosmos made itself brain-like because it is, in some way, a brain. That is almost reassuring. But the real finding offers no such intention. The universe did not try to look like you. There was no goal, no plan, no preference. Blind gravity, pulling on dead matter for billions of years with nothing in mind, happened to build the same architecture that blind evolution built inside your skull. The match is real, and the indifference behind it is total. That is harder to hold than a living cosmos, and it is worth feeling the difference. A universe that is secretly a mind is a universe you have a relationship with. A universe that produces your exact shape by accident, while caring nothing for you, while not being able to care, is a universe that has handed you a mirror for no reason at all. The reflection is real. There is no one on the other side of it. You are looking at your own architecture written across all of space, and the space does not know you are there. This is the dread the calm version carries, and it is quieter and deeper than the fear of a cosmic monster. It is the dread of finding yourself reflected in something that is not looking back. The pattern is shared. The recognition only runs one way. You see the universe in your own image, and the universe sees nothing. So the honest result is not warm, and it is not horror. It is something stranger than both. A real and measured kinship with a cosmos that cannot return it. And it would be easier to keep this at arm's length, as a clever finding from one study, if the universe were sitting still and finished. It is not. Right now, with the newest instruments ever built, the cosmic web is being mapped in sharper and sharper detail, and the closer we look, the more the likeness holds. This is not old news settling into the textbooks. The cosmic web is being seen more clearly right now than at any time in history, and every fresh map makes the structure harder to dismiss as a fuzzy idea. For most of the time we have known about the cosmic web, it was half inference. We could see the bright galaxies and we trusted that the dark threads ran between them, because the math demanded it and a few indirect signs backed it up. But the web itself, The faint connecting filaments stayed mostly hidden, too dim and too spread out to photograph directly. We were reading the shape of the spider's web from the dewdrops alone. That has started to change, fast. Using the most powerful space telescope ever flown, astronomers have built the sharpest map yet of the cosmic web, tracing the network back to when the universe was very young, only a small fraction of its present age. The branching skeleton of filaments and voids comes through in that map with a clarity no one had before. The structure that a brain surgeon could not tell apart from a slice of mind is now being charted across the early universe in fine detail, and it looks exactly as the pattern promised. More striking still, the actual connecting threads are no longer only inferred. After hundreds of hours of patient observation, a team captured a direct image of one of the faint filaments itself. A real cosmic thread of gas stretching between two young, forming galaxies, glowing just enough to be seen. For the first time, we are looking straight at the wiring, not the lit nodes hanging off it, but the dim cable running between them. The web is no longer a deduction. It is a photograph. Sit with what that means for this whole story. The resemblance does not rest on an old artist's impression or a rough simulation anymore. The thing being compared to your brain is the most precisely mapped large structure we have ever produced, sharpening month by month as the instruments improve. Every new map could have softened the pattern, blurred the threads, broken the network into something that no longer rhymed with a mind. None of them have. The clearer the picture gets, the more the brain-like architecture holds. There is a particular unease in that. A coincidence usually fades when you look harder. Stare long enough at a face in the clouds, and it breaks apart into vapor. This one does the opposite. The harder we look at the cosmic web, with better eyes than any humans have ever had, the more solid the resemblance becomes. It is not dissolving under scrutiny. It is firming up. And the new view is not just sharper. It is showing us that the web is far more active than the still pictures suggested. We tend to imagine the cosmic web as a frozen scaffold, a fixed skeleton hung in the dark. The latest observations are quietly overturning that. The threads are not sitting still. They are moving, channeling, even spinning, behaving in ways that pull the comparison with the brain into territory no one expected when this started. The web, it turns out, is doing things. Stop thinking of the cosmic web as a frozen picture, because that is the part the new maps are killing. The web moves. The threads are rivers, and the rivers run. The filaments are not just lines connecting nodes. They are channels, and matter flows along them. Gas and galaxies drift down the threads toward the dense nodes where the filaments meet, pulled inward over millions of years, the great crossing points feeding on the streams that pour into them. The web is a system of currents, a slow circulation moving material from the empty places toward the crowded ones along fixed routes. It is a flowing thing, not a fixed one. Then came a stranger finding. Astronomers discovered a cosmic filament where the galaxies are not only sitting in the thread, but spinning along with it. The whole vast structure turning, a chain of galaxies rotating around the line of the filament itself. A spinning filament was not something the simple picture predicted. It means these threads have a twist and a motion of their own, on a scale so large that the spin takes an unimaginable span of time to come around once. The wiring of the universe is not just laid out, it is turning. And the threads are hot, and they carry. Astronomers have traced a colossal filament of searing gas linking several galaxy clusters together. A single hot thread many times the mass of an entire galaxy, running between the nodes like a live cable. This matters beyond the spectacle. For a long time, a large share of the ordinary matter in the universe seemed to be missing, unaccounted for in the galaxies and clusters we could see. A good part of it appears to be hiding in these hot threads, strung along the filaments, exactly where the web's architecture said the connecting material should run. Now set that beside the brain, carefully, without overreaching. A brain is not a frozen map either. Its whole nature is flow, signals running along the connections, currents of activity sweeping across the network, traffic pouring through the busy hubs. The thing that makes a brain is not the static wiring, but the movement on it. And the cosmic web, it turns out, is also defined by flow, matter streaming along its threads toward its hubs, currents moving through its connections over cosmic time. Be precise about what this does and does not say. It does not bring the cosmic mind back. The flows in the web are slow beyond any thought, governed by gravity, not by signals updating a model of the world. This is not the universe thinking. But it deepens the structural likeness in a way the still pictures missed. The resemblance was never only in the frozen shape. Both systems are networks with movement running through them, traffic along the threads, activity gathering at the hubs. One moves in milliseconds, one moves across millions of years. The kind of motion, current flowing through a connected web toward its centers, is the same kind in both. So the web is alive with motion, even if it is not alive with mind. It flows, it spins, it carries the universe's missing matter through its hidden threads. The more we watch it move, the more it behaves like a network running something, rather than a sculpture holding still. And that pushes toward the most loaded comparison. The two scientists were brave enough to make it all. Not just that these networks have the same shape or the same flow, but that each one might be able to do the same deep thing, to hold information, to remember. The two scientists pushed their comparison one step past structure into something far more loaded, and they did it carefully because the word at the end of it is heavy. They asked how much information each network could hold. They asked about memory. Start with what memory means for a network, stripped of all romance. Any network of connected parts can store information in the pattern of its connections. A web with many nodes, wired in a rich and specific way, can hold an enormous amount of detail simply in which node links to which. Change a connection, and you have changed what the network holds. This is true of a brain where memories live in the pattern of links between neurons. It is true, in a plain physical sense, of any sufficiently complex network, whether or not anything is using it. So they estimated the carrying capacity of each. How much information could be encoded in the full pattern of the brain's network, in all those trillions of connections? And how much could be encoded in the full pattern of the cosmic web, in the arrangement of all its nodes and threads? These are rough numbers, reaching across enormous unknowns, and they were honest about that. But the comparison they came to is the kind of thing that makes you put the page down for a second. The amount of information the cosmic web can hold, in the layout of its structure, sits in a range not far from the amount the human brain can hold. The vast cosmos and the small mind land in a similar neighborhood for how much they can, in principle, store. Be careful here. More careful than anywhere else. Because this is where the story is easiest to abuse. Capacity to hold information is not the same as using it. A blank book can hold a story and is not telling one. A hard drive with no files written has capacity and remembers nothing. The cosmic web having a memory capacity near the brains does not mean the universe is remembering anything. It is not keeping diaries. It is not storing your face. It means only that the sheer structural richness of the cosmic network, measured as raw capacity, lands strangely close to the structural richness of the network that holds your entire life, and that closeness is its own quiet shock, even drained of all mysticism. There was no reason for the numbers to land near each other. The brain's capacity comes from biology straining to pack memory into a skull. The web's capacity comes from gravity arranging dead matter with no aim at all. Two completely unrelated processes, and the amount of information their structures can hold comes out in a similar range. One more measure where the impossible pair refuses to separate. This is the deepest the structural likeness goes. Same network shape, same mixture of active and passive, same wiring habits, same kind of flow, and now a similar capacity to hold information in the pattern itself. Every way the two scientists found to measure these systems, the brain and the cosmos kept landing close, across a gap that should have guaranteed they had nothing to say to each other. Once you have two networks of similar shape and similar capacity, a final, harder idea starts to press in. The one that sits underneath all the others. If both can hold information and both have structure running through them, then maybe the thing they share is not a look at all. Maybe it is a process. Maybe both of them, in some bare sense, are doing a kind of computing. Here is the idea that sits at the bottom of all this, and it is the hardest one to hold without slipping into nonsense. So hold it loosely. Some scientists have come to suspect that computation is not only something brains and machines do. It might be something the universe does, everywhere, by its very nature. Start with what computation means at its barest. Computation is just information changing by rules. You have some state, the universe applies a rule, you get a new state. That is all a computer does, step after step. And that description, oddly, fits more than computers. Any physical system sits in some state, and the laws of physics push it to the next state, and the next. In that plain sense, a river flowing, a star burning, a web of galaxies pulling itself together, each is information being transformed by rule, step after step. Each is, in the barest sense, computing its own next moment. If you take that seriously, the brain stops being special in kind and becomes special in degree. The brain is not the one place in a dead universe where information processing happens. It is a place where a very dense, very fast version of something universal is concentrated. A knot where the computing the universe does everywhere is wound up tight and run hot. Your thoughts are not an exception to a mindless cosmos. They are an intensification of what the cosmos does at large, more focused, faster, turned back on itself. Now the resemblance reads a different way. The brain and the cosmic web might look alike, not because shape repeats for no reason, but because both are networks doing the same fundamental thing, transforming information by rule, and that deep task tends to build the same kind of structure. The shape would be the footprint of the process. Networks that process information efficiently may simply have to look like this: a web of hubs and threads, whether the processor is a mind or a universe, slowly sorting matter into place. Hold this at arm's length, because it is speculation, and the honest scientists mark it as such. This is not confirmed. It is an open idea at the edge of physics, and plenty of serious people think it stretches the word computation past where it is useful. Call it what it is, a proposed reading, not a proven one. It does not mean the universe is conscious. A thing can process information and feel nothing, the way a calculator does. The claim is smaller and stranger than a living cosmos. It is that the line between what minds do and what the universe does might be one of degree, not of kind. But even as a possibility, it lands hard. because of where it leaves you. If computation is woven through everything, then the brain that is reading these words is not a lonely spark of process in a dead dark. It is the universe's own way of processing, folded up small and aimed back at the rest. The same kind of activity that sorts galaxies into threads is the activity sorting these words into meaning in your head right now. Different in speed, different in heat, different in scale beyond imagining, and yet maybe the same deep act. Which brings the whole question to its sharpest point. If the brain and the universe share a shape, and maybe a process, then the next thing to ask is not about them at all. It is about why nature keeps choosing this out of everything it could have chosen. Why this shape? Why, again and again, the same answer? Step back from the brain and the universe and ask the question that has been building under all of this. Why this shape? Out of every possible way to arrange matter, why does nature keep coming back to the same network of hubs and threads in systems that share nothing? There is a clue in life that points at the answer, and it has a name: convergence. In living things, the same solution keeps getting invented again and again by creatures with no relation to each other. The eye is the famous case. Eyes evolved separately many times over, in animals on completely different branches of life. Octopus and human, and others, each line arriving at the camera eye on its own, because for the problem of seeing, that design simply works. Wings did the same, evolving over and over in insects, birds, bats, separate inventions converging on the same form, because for flight, that is the shape that flies. Convergence carries a deep lesson. When unrelated systems, solving the same problem, keep arriving at the same form, it tells you the form is not an accident of history. It is something closer to a fixed solution, a shape the problem itself demands. The eye keeps appearing because, given light and the need to see, the camera eye is close to the only good answer. The form is waiting in the structure of the problem, and any system that solves the problem well is funneled toward it. Now, apply that to the network. The problem is everywhere. How do you connect a huge number of parts tightly and efficiently, letting influence cross the whole system in few steps, without spending endlessly on connections? The brain faces it, packing memory and signal into a skull. The universe faces a version of it, gravity linking matter across vast distance with the cheapest possible structure. The fungus faces it underground, the slime mold faces it in the dish. And every one of them converges on the same answer: the web of light nodes and heavy hubs. Because for the problem of connecting many things well, that web may be close to the only good solution there is. If that is right, the mystery turns inside out. The brain does not look like the universe because of any link between them. They look alike because they are both well-built networks, and a well-built network has a shape the way a good eye has a shape. The form was never going to be invented fresh each time. It was waiting, written into the logic of connection itself. For anything that needed to connect a great many parts to find, gravity found it, evolution found it. They found the same thing because there was, in the end, one good thing to find. This is the calm reading, the one the careful scientists lean toward, and it is genuinely beautiful. Not a conscious cosmos, not a signal between mind and stars, something quieter and, in its way, larger. The idea that certain shapes are built into the structure of reality, waiting, and that any system complex enough will be drawn to them, the way water is drawn downhill. The brain and the universe found the same form because the form was always there to be found. And if the form was always there, then so were you. In a sense worth taking seriously. Because you are not standing outside this pattern, observing it from some clean distance. You are made of it, the same matter, the same web, all the way down. And that is the part that finally turns this from a fact about the sky into a fact about you. Stop looking out at the cosmic web for a moment and look down at your own hand, because the connection between them is not a poem. It is plain physics, and it is literal. Every atom in that hand that is heavier than the lightest gases was made inside a star. The carbon in your cells, the oxygen in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the iron carrying air through your veins, all of it was forged in the cores of stars that lived and died before the sun existed. Those stars built the heavy elements in their hearts, then blew them out across space when they died, seeding the gas that would later collapse into new stars, new worlds, and eventually you. You are made of the ash of dead stars. This is not a metaphor. It is where your atoms come from. And those stars did not sit just anywhere. They formed along the cosmic web, in the galaxies strung on its threads, gathered at its nodes. The web is where matter collects, and matter is where stars are born, and stars are where your atoms were made. So your body is not separate from the cosmic web. It is a piece of the web, processed through stars and time and biology, gathered up off the threads, and folded into a shape that can stand here and wonder about the threads it came from. Follow the chain plainly, with no mysticism. The web pulled gas into galaxies. The galaxies made stars. The stars made the heavy atoms. The atoms scattered, gathered again, became a planet, became living things, became you. At no point in that chain did you leave the web. You are what the cosmic web does after enough time, in one small place, under the right conditions. The largest structure in existence, run forward long enough, produces creatures made of its own material, walking on a planet, looking back up. So when the brain turns out to share the architecture of the cosmic web, there is one reading that needs no miracle at all. Of course there is a kinship. The brain is not a foreign thing that happens to resemble the cosmos. It is the cosmos, locally, a knot of cosmic matter arranged into a network. Sitting inside a larger network it was drawn from. The web building a smaller web is not so strange when the smaller web is made of the larger one, atom by atom. This is the calm answer carried all the way down to your own body, and it is the firmest ground in the whole story. Forget whether the universe is a mind. Forget whether it computes. The plain fact stands on its own. You are made of the web. You are shaped like the web. And you came from the web, by a chain of pure physics with no gaps that need filling. But there is one more turn, and it is the one that should raise the hair on your arms, because it is not about matter or shape. It is about what just happened in this exact moment. A piece of the cosmic web, made of dead stars, wired into a network that mirrors the whole, has spent this last hour using that network to study the very pattern it is made of. The web has grown a part that turns around and looks at the web. And nothing in any of the physics explains why it can. Here is the thing no theory touches, and it is worth saying slowly, because everything calm we have built leads straight into it and then stops. Self-organization explains the shape. Convergence explains why the shape repeats. Stardust explains why you are made of the same stuff. All of it is solid, and none of it explains the strangest fact in the room, which is that the pattern woke up. Walk it through plainly. The cosmic web is matter arranged by gravity. For most of the history of the universe, it did exactly what dead matter does. It pulled, it gathered, it flowed, with no one inside it and nothing watching. Then, In at least one place, on one small world, a knot of that matter folded itself into a network dense enough and fast enough to do something new. It started to model the world around it. It started to ask questions. It became aware that it existed. A piece of the cosmic web sat up and noticed the cosmic web. That is what you are doing right now. The atoms in your head, forged in stars and gathered off the threads of the web, are arranged into a network that is, at this moment, thinking about the network it belongs to. The pattern is studying itself. The universe has produced, out of its own dead material, a small region that can turn around and comprehend the whole. And there is no law of physics that predicts this. Nothing in gravity says matter should ever wake up. Nothing in the rules that build the cosmic web requires that any part of it should ever come to know it is there. This is where the experts go quiet, and it is important to hear the silence honesty. We can measure the resemblance between brain and cosmos. We can explain the shape with self-organization and the repetition with convergence. But the leap from a network that processes information to a network that experiences anything, that has an inside, that knows it exists, is unexplained at the deepest level. No one can say why arranging matter into a brain produces an awareness looking out. It is one of the hardest open problems there is, and pretending otherwise is a lie. The shape we can account for. The waking up, we cannot. So you arrive at the real edge of this whole story, and it is sharper than any cosmic mind. The universe did not become aware of itself everywhere. Slowly, as one great mind, it became aware of itself here, in pieces, in small fast knots of its own matter that grew eyes and turned around. You are one of those knots. You are the cosmic web, at the one improbable stage where it opened a part of itself and looked back in. And the dread and the wonder of it are the same thing, finally refusing to separate. You are a structure built by blind forces, made of dead stars, shaped like the largest thing there is, and somehow, against everything, awake inside the pattern, able to feel how strange that is. The web does not know you are there, but you know the web is there. The recognition that runs only one way runs through you. So, the question this whole hour has been circling lands at last, not out in deep space, but in the thing reading these words. What does it mean to be the universe, looking at itself? Sit with where you actually are right now, because this is the whole thing, stripped of every theory. You are a piece of the universe that has, for a short while, woken up. You are made of the oldest matter there is, arranged into a network that took the shape of the largest structure there is, and you are using that network in this moment to think about the structure you came from. That is not a metaphor, and it is not mysticism. It is a plain description of what you are doing as you take this in. For 1 hour you have watched the resemblance grow. The picture a brain surgeon could not tell from the sky. The clumping that matched across a billion times of scale. The mixture of working web and still see, the same in both. The wiring, the flow, the capacity to hold information, every measure landing close where it had no right to. And under all of it, the calm and solid answer. Not a living cosmos. Just the deep fact that certain shapes are written into reality, and anything complex enough is drawn to them, and you are one of the things that was drawn. What that answer does, quietly, is dissolve a wall you have carried your whole life without noticing. The wall between you and the universe. The sense that there is the cosmos, vast and out there and other, and then there is you, small and separate, looking at it from outside. That wall is not real. You're not looking at the universe from outside it. There is no outside. You are the universe, in one small place, briefly arranged, so that it can look at the rest. The watcher and the watched are the same web, and the only thing that ever separated them was the feeling of being a single, small self. This is the turn the calm answer makes that the cosmic mind never could. The cosmic mind kept you small, a thought inside something greater, watched over, held. The real finding does something stranger and larger. It does not put a mind above you. It tells you that you are the place where the cosmos became a mind at all. Not watched by the universe, not separate from it. You are the part of it that sees, and that recognition runs only one way, which is the whole weight of it. The web does not know it built you. The stars that made your atoms are long dead and never knew. The vast structure you are shaped like will never turn and notice the small awake thing that came out of it. The looking is yours alone. In all that silent, indifferent immensity, the seeing happens here in you and in the others like you, brief knots of woken matter, and almost nowhere else that we know of. So you are rare in a way no theory softens. Not the center of anything, not the point of anything, just the one place so far where the pattern came awake and turned around. The universe spent almost its entire history with no one home. You are part of the short, strange moment when someone is, which leaves only the question we started with. The one the two images posed before anyone measured a thing. Why does the largest structure in existence look like the inside of your head? We can answer it now. And the answer points the wrong way. Back through the glass, at you. Go back to the two pictures on the screen in Italy. The slice of brain and the slice of universe that a surgeon could not tell apart. We can finally say why they match, and the answer is not the one the picture seems to offer. They do not match because the universe is a mind. They match because there is a small set of shapes built into the structure of reality. Shapes that any complex network is pulled toward, the way water is pulled downhill. And the web of hubs and threads is one of them. Gravity, building the cosmos out of dead matter over billions of years, was drawn to that shape. Life, building a brain out of cells inside a skull, was drawn to the same shape. They never met. They share no force, no material, no scale, no cause. They arrived at the same form because the form was waiting, and anything that connects enough parts well enough ends up finding it. The likeness is real, it is measured, and it needs no miracle. The shape is just one of the answers the universe keeps. So the resemblance was never really pointing out, at some mind in the stars. It was pointing in. It was telling you what you are. You are not a visitor in this universe, looking at its patterns from some safe place outside. You are one of its patterns. The same web that hangs across all of space hangs smaller inside your skull, made of the same atoms, found by the same blind logic, and for a brief moment it is awake and aware that the larger web exists. That is the thing to carry out of this. Not that the cosmos is watching you. It is not. The dread underneath this whole story was always the dread of being reflected in something that cannot look back. And that dread is honest. The universe made you in its own shape and does not know you are here. But turn that around one last time and feel where it leaves you. You are the part that knows. In all that silence, you are the place where the universe is not blind. The largest structure in existence looks like the inside of your head. Now you know why. It is not that the sky is thinking. It is that the thing doing the looking and the thing being looked at were never two different things. You are the web, looking at the web. And one day, like the stars that made you, you will come apart and your atoms will go back to the threads they came from, and the looking will stop here for a while. The pattern stays. It always did.